Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. If anyone needs operator assistance, please press *0. I will now introduce today's conference leader, Mr. John Good. Sir, you may begin.
Thanks, operator, and thanks to everyone who's taken time to join us today for Coffee with Quantum. I'm John Good, Director of Quantum Alliance Marketing. Today we're going to talk about object storage and how to find object storage opportunities, and then how to use Lattus M to address those. All phone lines are muted to minimize background noise. If you have a question at any time, there's a box in the bottom right-hand side of your screen titled Q&A. Type your question in there and make sure you label it for all panelists. At the conclusion of our presentation today, we'll answer those questions that you've typed in the Q&A box. So the coffee part of Coffee with Quantum is we give away 5 $25 Starbucks gift cards. We'll do that at the very end of the presentation as well. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to our hosts. Skip Levins is going to introduce your host today, take you through the agenda, and kick off the presentation. So Skip, turning it over to you now.
Excellent. Thank you, and good morning. We are so pleased at any chance we get to talk to our alliance partners. We've got a very exciting subject on tap for you today: Lattus M object storage, and best of all, we're going to talk about how to present to and how to uncover those big data opportunities that are out there. Today, to present this information is a wealth of experience in the person of Mr. Alex Grossman. Alex is the Vice President of Big Data Marketing for Quantum, and we're joined also by Karen Sigmund, who's the Area Vice President for Object Storage. I'm Skip Levins. I drive technical marketing at Quantum to provide technical materials for all of you. And so today, I think you may notice a slight format change where we're making it, call it a little more radio style, a little more interactive and back and forth. Keep those questions coming in. We'll be sure to answer them during the session, and any questions you ask that we're not able to get to during the session, we will answer those offline as well. So with that, let's have a look at the agenda today. So today, let's do a reset. Let's talk about object storage, and call it a primer, but object storage at this stage of the game means almost everything to everyone. We're going to tell you what object storage, what true next generation object storage is. And then we're going to tell you about how Lattus object storage realizes the full potential of object storage. Then we'll walk through some prime use cases that depending on the segment you focus on, that'll help tell you where those customers are. And in the Hunting for Prospects section, we'll have lots of material and ideas about where these customers are, what they look like, what their pain points are, so that you can zero in and help them out. Best of all, we're going to step through an example of how to present to these customers, and then when it's time to advance your customer down the stage to actively engaging and doing a proof of concept and getting you closer to that sale with that customer, we're going to talk about how to engage, get a proof of concept online, all the different steps and resources and sales tools to capture those opportunities, flush them out where they live, and advance them down the road to that sale that we all want. So with that, I'm going to ask, we're going to kick off with an object storage primer. So for this, it's over to Karen Sigmund. So Karen, if you could take us through what a primer on object storage is.
Thanks, Skip. Appreciate that. Hello, everybody, and I echo Skip's comments. We're very excited to have this opportunity to talk with you about object storage today. What we have developed here is this is the presentation you're going to have as one of your sales tools. And I just want to walk you through, what we did is we designed this presentation as a way for you to discover with your customers what are their business needs. It's not really directly a Lattus presentation. It's meant to uncover the changes that are happening in the customer's environment, and it kind of leads up to those things that make sense for an object storage type solution. Let me start off with, how you would use this, and I'm going to walk through it as if I'm talking to a customer, but also talk you through it how you could use this as a tool for yourself. Advance the slide here. There we go. All right. So with that, the first thing you want to talk to your customers about, and I think you guys always naturally talk about this anyway in your own business conversations, is understanding, what is changing in the way that they're managing their data today. All of your customers they're already addressing issues with what does their data life cycle look like. I like to talk to customers at this point. What are the problems they're seeing with their access, their data? Do they have more people that need access to the same data? Do they have different people that need access to it than they did before? Do they need to use that data for different purposes? Do they have any predictability in when they need to access it and when they don't? What's their growth projections for what they've got today? Is it expanding? Is it changing? Is it staying the same? What is there? Most of these customers are seeing large exponential growth of larger files, video files, internal files, videos, whatever it is. If it's corporate video data or corporate images or just large files, a lot of it is unstructured. Just trying to get a sense from the customer how their data requirements are changing from what they're before. This is really a good opportunity to really dig into those questions with those customers and find out what is changing in their environment. And that naturally now want to talk about, as part of that change, the infrastructure requirements are changing. The old infrastructure, everyone will recognize, your customers will all recognize everything on the left. You had your old infrastructure where you had your primary data, and that naturally over time and over use, you would have a time scale and you would lay that down into a vault. Over time, that would just be very straightforward infrastructure. You'd be going your data down to your vault, and you just constantly life cycles. What's your backup life cycle? At what point do you move it to the vault? Very straightforward infrastructure. In the new world that we're talking about with customers today, they're having to rethink that architecture. You hear, everyone's adding in SSDs for their fast cache. That's become a new layer above primary storage. Now, then you've got your primary storage. And then where does the vault fit? When do I actually vault things? Do I still need to access things that are in the vault? Do I know when I need to access those things in the vault? Do I know if I'm going to need to do data analytics on it out in a Hadoop environment? You have a smart data movement issue. Now all of a sudden you've got this pool of data where you've got to build out an infrastructure that supports this kind of large and ever-growing population of data in an unstructured way with an on-demand requirement that you may not know. So, with that conversation, so how do I build an infrastructure to support what the customer needs? Obviously, when you're looking at this, that's where you, as the value-added partner, the consultative role, can talk to them about the different technologies that are available to the customers today. Do they have tape as an option in their infrastructure? RAID. There's public cloud options out there. There's object storage as a technology option. And then on the left here, you see all the different needs. I like to say, look at the primary storage. Primary storage is not an option for tape as a general rule. Is really good use case for RAID. It can be a public cloud depending upon latency and those kinds of things, but it's not necessarily, a really good use case for that.
So Karen, it's Alex there. I know you do this presentation to end users all the time, and we do it together a lot. And so for the alliance partners that are out there, when they get into this, they're selling a lot of different things, right? They're selling RAID, they're selling tape, they're being hit by the public cloud guys to sell that. And of course, they want to do something with object storage, and we're going to tell them why technology-wise it's more important. But is there a place for all this? I mean, I look at this chart and I go, well, ideally, object storage has a lot of things filled in, and there's some things that aren't completely filled in, like primary storage, where it looks like it's got a quarter. Someone wrote a quarter with a pen in there. Are the tiers of storage going to diminish, or are we just adding another tier? I mean, that's a question a lot of people are going to ask, right?
Yeah, no, I think that there's a place for every one of these technologies. And what you're seeing is that, There is always going to be a place for a final vault archive. I think that isn't going away. I think you as the consultant, the partners as the consultants, have all these things at their disposal, and it's about uncovering the needs that we talked about in the first chart. What are their primary requirements? And then as we work through what are the pluses and minuses of each of these technologies, which we're going to talk about in a minute, you can really uncover what's going to make the best, what's going to be the best solution for your client. Object storage isn't always going to be the best solution, but what you will find is that as you have more and more needs that you see on the left, the more of these needs you have on the left, you tend to see object storage fits the majority of those needs and can be not only a platform for your unstructured data for today, but can take on a lot of the problems you need to solve for the future. So it's really, the more visionary your customer is, the more problems they need to solve, the more likely object storage can be that cost-effective solution for them. Alex, do you have any, Alex, do you agree? Do you have any?
I agree 100%, Karen. I think that the opportunity that we all have with object storage is it's truly a technology that has the best of a lot of worlds in it. In theory, because of the way Quantum, and we're going to talk about that a little more, how Quantum has deployed object storage, you eliminate a lot of need for tape for a lot of customers, and you eliminate the need, as you said on the last slide, you eliminate the need for growing primary storage. You can get away with a much smaller amount of primary storage, which reduces your cost and eliminates your migration time every few years. So I think it also fixes some of the problems that people have. Maybe I'm teeing you up for the next slide, that people have with RAID as it goes into the petascale environment, correct?
That's correct. I agree with that, yes. And you kind of like, of course, you're my straight man, Alex, because now we're going to walk into, as you start to think about the technologies and where do they fit for the client, now you start saying, okay, where does RAID fit? RAID is a great opportunity for, when you're trying to do high-performance primary storage. But as you get into scale and you get into unpredictable access methods for the clients, you start to run into issues with the inefficiencies of RAID. RAID, as you know, you'll have a couple of parities, and all of a sudden your durability with RAID becomes an issue. Once you start to lose a couple of disks, or all of a sudden your rebuild times start to dramatically increase. And so one of the advantages of an object storage type solution over a RAID is that the way that it's laid out, you don't have that inefficient use of parity. Almost every algorithm you write is a parity, so you don't have the rebuild issues and the rebuild times associated with RAID. I like to say that RAID is built with absolutely the best technology to take us from terabytes to petabyte, but as you want to go from petabytes to exabytes, or even multiple petabytes, the efficiency of object storage far exceeds that of RAID. And that's frankly why you see all the public cloud vendors out there today who have very multi-petabyte scale in all of their platforms. Every single one of them uses an object storage back for the architecture of their solution. So when a customer is trying to build out their large-scale implementations themselves, you can see that they would be using the same technologies that they're being used in large-scale public clouds is exactly the same reason you don't want to use a basic.
Hey, Karen, we're having a little bit of trouble with your audio, so.
Is this going to be any better? How do you guys feel about seeing me with the phone in my hand?
Oh, that's good. I can hear you.
All right. Well, now I'll really be like the radio. I just need to get the big headset over my head, and then we'll talk. So, anyway, so at this point, that's really the difference. Is that as you're building out these technologies, when you're talking to a client about it, is if they really have the scale issues that you see with some of these public cloud large customer environments, that's where they're going to see the benefit of the durability of a non-RAID solution, of an object storage type solution over RAID. And the next comment is talk about these, the different file types. What is object storage? It's really taking over it's the next generation of file management, where you used to have block, then you had basic file hierarchy, and now we're talking about object storage. What's the difference in that? Block, as you know, was based on transactional processing, and going back to the mainframe days, they needed to have very high speed performance for that transactional database. That was the essence of what Block was built for in the first place. File was built to manage a lot of this unstructured data and building the hierarchy around that file systems. Object is now gives you the ability to create files that don't have that hierarchy associated with it. It's a flat namespace. Now all of a sudden you can use it with different applications. You have much more portability associated with an object file format, because you as a customer can now take that same object, which isn't tied to a particular file system, and you can move it, if you need to, off to a Hadoop environment. You can move it to a public cloud environment. Once you build an object is an object. There is no hierarchy or a tie to that. So it's a real advantage.
I always look at it like this. Like if you go to the next slide, right, if you're looking at this slide and you go to the next slide, it really tells it. So the first slide says, well, I have to drive down the tree, right? If I want to go from object 1, or if I want to go from file 1 to file 6, I have to kind of drive down the tree, even the way it's laid out on disk from a physical standpoint. I have to access it. I have to get to it. Physically, I can't go from 1 to 6 without going through 2, 3, 4, and 5. Where with object storage, since you have objects and IDs, everything is interconnected like a big web.
That's
and
right.
So it doesn't tie anything to a physical location. So I don't literally have to drive down the road. It's not like a single-lane highway where if I want to get from point A to point B, I have to drive down the road, and if there are other things in the way, there are things in the way. This is like the instantaneous Star Trek transporter. You know, I can move from any dot to any dot instantly within object storage, and it doesn't care where it's physically located. As long as I have that ID, I can just instantly get to it. And I think that changes the way we look at it. From a technical standpoint, it's interesting because to me, and as people can explain this to their customers, this is more than RAID. Where RAID has the capability of taking real data, laying it out, using an algorithm only for the parity checking, what object storage does is it turns everything essentially into an algorithm. And therefore you're writing smaller amounts of data in many more places, so you get the benefit of being able to access it more quickly, and more importantly, you get much greater data integrity without a high cost, where people, in order to do this, they had to do, and a lot of people wouldn't do this, they had to get a durability where we're talking about something like a RAID 6 where you would mirror it or you'd replicate it. You want to touch on that just a touch?
Yeah, I think the big advantage there is that there's a couple of advantages. One is that as you're using this erasure coding technology, what it does for you, as you just said, is you basically are laying out algorithms across a bunch of different storage nodes, a bunch of different disks. And so when you go to rebuild that file and you go to access that file, you don't actually need to wait until you compile all those algorithms together. You can as soon as you get the minimum number you need, whatever your durability policy is, you pick it, whether it's 18.6 or 11.10, whatever you pick the number to be, you can pick that durability policy for that data. And even better than that, you can change it on the fly. If you decide tomorrow that the durability needs to change and all of a sudden that data is not as important to me, you can change that durability and recapture some of your capacity back in your system. So you can pick that by your data type, by your access method. So you as a user have complete control over how durable the data is, not just from day one, but by type of data and by time. You can pick it and change it as you go. So that in addition to that, you can push it across the globe. You can put your data in multiple data centers around the globe, and you can change. And that not only gives you that durability, but you also can potentially leverage it for DR. You can make it so durable that you can protect yourself from a single failure from a disk, multiple disk failures, down to a storage node, to a site, to a controller, to a complete site. So you can pick your durability and build this as a DR option as well as just a scale-out capability for you.
So, Karen, something you said there really hit with me. So what you said was that the data value, the first slide you talked about, the data value changes over time. And so if it becomes less valuable but you still want to keep it, you could actually knock down the durability policy, where if you're buying something like scale-out NAS, for instance, as RAID-based, you have to scale in a linear fashion between capacity and performance. And if I choose that I'm going to use a certain RAID level or something like that, I have to stick with that.
That's
and
right.
where with object storage, and the way Lattus is built in particular, is I can say, well, this information, I mean, take a media case, my dear and near heart, right? This information is really valuable to me. This content or these assets are super valuable today, but I know that 3 months down the road they're going to be valuable but not as valuable, so I don't need them to take up as much space. So I can literally take that knob and turn it down and then take the new content that I'm ingesting and make that more valuable. And then maybe, this could be, it could be the next Bambi or the next, the next great movie, and I want to put that out there only on object storage, so I'm going to take it, put the durability way up, and maybe I'll never lay it out to data tape at all. And I might just spread this throughout the world, right?
That's right. And even if you go through a period where all of a sudden you have a bursting and you didn't plan your capacity well enough, you can even make choices to change your knobs to manage your capacity for the short term while you wait for your provisioning. There's a lot of options here for you as a client to not only do it based on the data integrity, but also on your capacity planning processes in your own data center.
And we're not talking about when we talk about durability, we're really talking about the amount of failures that the system can ensure before we lose the data. But at any case, it's still going to be equivalent or better than RAID 6, and we could make it significantly better if we really wanted to. So it's not like people are sacrificing any type of if you want to call it data integrity. They're just increasing the data integrity to match what they would have having the old 3-copy routine. If you want to talk about that, how this helps with that, I really appreciate that.
So basically because of that, whereas before you might have to have one copy, you'd have to have one copy, a backup copy, and then you'd have a DR copy. If you could help your customers eliminate just one of those copies and still maintain even higher durability, imagine if you could give them twice the durability with 1/3 of the capacity or 2/3 of the capacity they previously had. There's a huge financial advantage to that. Plus, they get a number of other benefits, which I want to talk about going forward here. For instance, this automatically gives you that ability now. If you could not only get that additional capacity advantage and the durability advantage, but on top of that, the client could get transparent cloud migration because they've got an object file format. They could export this for a Hadoop-type environment that they need to do. Think of all your clients out there that want to turn IT into a for-profit service for their clients. They want to start taking all this data that they've have off in the background, and they want to be able to use that for other purposes. They want to sell it. They want to put it into a new application for their clients. They want to turn it into something of more value for the customers or for themselves. That monetizing of it becomes a lot easier when it's accessible and it's in a standardized format. So those are all of that can be done in a very cost-effective way. Excuse me, I did not. Rule number 1: turn off your phone. But also being able to get that rapid access to historical data. You don't have to worry about the latency associated with it. You don't have to worry about finding the right tape. You don't have to worry about it being in a sequential format. All of that can be done. There's still a place for, and on top of that, you can import the data with a block format. You can have this with StoreNext. You have the beautiful ability to be able to leverage that to also have tape be part of the tier. So you can have all of this be combined, whereas a lot of the other cloud formats today will say, well, get rid of tape. Well, not every customer is ready to get rid of their tape environment. And so being able to leverage an object storage portfolio solution combined with your tape environment, with your primary storage, and build that into a complete infrastructure, you're now building a bridge for your clients that give them a single-tenant cloud solution instead of a multi-tenant cloud. They can now do a single-tenant cloud solution, and they can get the durability they want, they can get the scale they want, and they can integrate it into the existing infrastructure they've got and really show value for today and set up a platform for the future.
Karen, can you just take one thing, just define in just a sentence or two, what everybody's talking about when they talk about multi-tenancy and single-tenancy? Is this the single-family home apartment building concept? Is that the way this works?
Well, I mean, think of you hear everyone talks about the definitions of cloud. So public cloud is typically one of the major definitions of a public cloud environment is multi-tenant, meaning you and other customers are sharing the same infrastructure. Now, it might be cordoned off and it's secure, to a certain degree, but you are sharing infrastructure. There are certain customers, certain data sets that do not, are not really comfortable yet with moving into a multi-tenant environment, and it may not even be cost effective when you consider the fact that if you have a large scale customer, there's really not a ton of value in migrating. You have to get it over the wire. Getting that data into those public cloud environments can be a chore as well if you've got a lot of it. So, when you think about it, having basically being able to enable your customer to build a private cloud where it's a single tenant, meaning it's only their data, it's a dedicated infrastructure. You can do that in the customer's environment. You as our partners have the ability, a lot of you are managed service providers yourselves, you have the ability to take this technology and deliver it to your clients today. And obviously we'd have to, we look at this on a one-off basis with each of you. But we can enable you as our partners to go out and deliver this as a service to your clients. So you can become that cloud provider leveraging object storage technologies, integrating it in with their current workflow. You've got the integration with StoreNext, which none of these other solutions out there today have. You have the ability to leverage it with tape. It's now an integrated solution where you do not have to do that integration or testing yourselves as an MSP. It's all been tested. The gateway into this environment is tested. The applications into this environment are tested. The out of this environment to tape is tested. It's a completely integrated solution, which, for this market is one of the reasons that I really believe in Lattus. I mean, it is the solution that customers can count on.
So, Karen, you came from the object storage world, and you came from the cloud world. I mean, your head was in the clouds for a long time, and you finally came back down to earth.
Yeah.
And we always talk about private clouds, public clouds, all these pieces. It seems like public clouds are easy from an on-ramp standpoint because you for the consumer, you have a Google Drive or you have an Amazon, and you just use a browser, you point it to it, and you can move stuff in and out. They have a little desktop app, but it's harder when you're trying to work with public clouds and even certain private clouds, and I think you alluded to it, is that the on-ramps, the way you get the data in and the way you get the data out, a lot of times requires specific applications to be written or modifications to your applications. And to me, I think you touched on it, is that in the quantum environment with Lattus, we took a core technology of object storage, we built around it all the components to make it extremely robust, and to put it out there so that if someone had a StoreNext file system today, a managed file system or an unmanaged file system, they literally can just look at this as another device, right?
That's right. And if they're in the media and entertainment space, as you well know, or anybody that's got a MAM out there, all of those are integrated with StoreNext. So their workflow is automatically tested. It's automatically supported. There's no, is this fit within this infrastructure for testing? I mean, this is a completely integrated tested environment, the way it was developed. It's absolutely the most robust environment I've seen in the object storage space in the market. There's no question, hands down. The on-ramp, if you think about it, there's a whole market out there of cloud gateways. And I don't even need to name them because all of you talked and work with a lot of these guys. But the challenge with that cloud gateway market is exactly that they have to all get integrated and individually tested with every cloud infrastructure out there, and they have to constantly stay up to date on any changes that are being made by all those cloud providers. So you can imagine the matrix of testing that has to occur for a cloud gateway with every object storage vendor and with all the applications and with the individual customer use cases that they're being driven to. The combination of all that is very difficult to maintain, very cost-effective, time-consuming, and that's why what we've done with Lattus is by integrating in the application through StoreNext, you now have a huge opportunity to have a completely integrated solution. On top of that, we have an A10 controller that allows you to do standard CIFS NFS interfaces into the Lattus implementation, which gives you that standard, if you have a current NAS environment and a customer probably has maybe a StoreNext environment, plus they've got a NAS environment that they want to to be able to move data in. You know, you can use this as a central repository with multiple access points into a single central repository, and still leverage that in repository for big data. You can take it and now take that and move it out for analytics. The other big differentiator is large file friendly. Public cloud, going back to what Alex was talking about, Alex, you and I both know that when you sit there and you wait to upload a big file. Now, any of you, that unless you have a big, expensive private link, you know, even with those links, there's physics involved in moving stuff over the wire. And so, if you're a customer, there's only so much you can move in a certain amount of time. And when the advantage of a private cloud for a customer, putting in a dedicated environment for them, is they can put it right next to where they need to import the data. And so the ability to get more data in faster and make it accessible is a big differentiator over a public cloud option today. Doesn't mean there isn't a place for a public cloud. In fact, we're looking at building our own. But the advantage of that is that you as a MSP can offer this to the clients in their location, in your data centers, wherever it makes sense for the customer's environment to get the data into the cloud. You're not limited by specific data centers that are only available to you today. And so with that, I want to just take a second and talk a little bit about, Alex, I think I want to hand this over to you and have you talk a little bit about the use cases of Lattus.
Sounds good, Karen. Thank you. So if we look at object storage in general, as Karen said, there's a lot of different object storage solutions out there, and there are a number of ways of addressing object storage, and there's also different types of object storage that people can deal with. And one of the interesting things is the way we deal with it in what we call Lattus. And I think, to me, Lattus is really it's the best object storage that's out there today. And part of the reason for it is because not only does it offer the things that people look at when they look at object storage, which are self-migrating, and we'll talk about that, self-healing and scaling indefinitely, but what it really does is it gives you the on-ramp. It gives you a way to be able to bring it into your existing environment without a lot of drama that you get when you're trying to build your own system. So with that, I want to take it into a little bit into what the use cases would be. How would someone use it? Well, I think probably the classic case for Lattus today and the classic case for object storage is media entertainment. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at media entertainment, and I, of course, this is near and dear to my heart, I think one of the problems has been, how do I save this information? How do I archive it for the future? Because it has value. And we have to make a few assumptions here. The first assumption is that you're going to create content and assets that have value, and you're going to have to access them in an unpredictable manner. Meaning that if you have it out, you look at things that are backup and archive in a more corporate sense, what you find is you only need it for a few reasons. You need it when there's an SEC violation. You need it when you need to get it back to an email, he said, she said, or you need it for other engineering purposes. But for the most part, in media entertainment, you don't know when you're going to need that content. And depending on what the type of content is, assuming it's sports content, assuming it's movies, television content, you pretty much are going to need it on a cadence, or you're going to need it when it becomes very popular. And when you retrieve it, you usually, be nice to stay in the business. I have 6 or 8 weeks to go get that. For instance, if it's an SEC thing, the court says you have 6 months to produce that document. Well, we don't have that. I mean, you have an unpredictable way of, I need that today, I need it now. I don't know where that asset is. I have a great media asset manager that's going to help me find it, but where is it? And so the SLA, or the service level we need to maintain, is more disk-like. We need to retrieve assets at disk speeds. And for us, one of the greatest things is if you look at the market share of how many people are running managed and unmanaged networks with StorNext, and it doesn't have to be the quote-unquote SAN. There's this mix of LAN clients, IP clients, and SAN clients for speed, and everybody has access to the StoreNext network. And the beauty of Lattus is, as we said before, it just plugs in. Essentially, it just looks like another disk target. So one of the keys there is that I can plug it in and get my information very quickly. I can get my content and my assets back. But the value of those assets can change. And you don't want to throw anything away. I mean, one of the golden rules in media is I've got to keep everything, because I know the one thing that I throw away will be the one thing I need a day from now, a year from now, a month from now, and it'll have significant value. So the key really is determining over time what the value of your assets are without throwing them away. Again, turning those knobs so that I can set my level of performance, how fast I want to access it, versus how durable it is, how safe it is out there for the long term. Stuff that I already have out on tape, I may want to have less durability to have greater speed. Stuff that I'm going to start putting out in object storage and never put out there on either videotape or data tape, I may want to have the maximum amount of durability, so I want to turn that knob up. And over time, if I feel it has no value and I haven't used it for a long time, I may want to turn it down. So how do I deploy this? I mean, I see this personally as the only viable alternative to Film Vault. So not everybody's going to build a Film Vault. So you have a very compelling reason to say to your customers that have a workflow where they're doing ingest, work in process, delivery, and archive, that somewhere between that work in process, ingest, and the archive, object storage fits. So whether it's another tier beyond your nearline tier or replaces your nearline tier, that's to be seen for the customer. But the way I see it today is if the customers have a lot of primary storage and they're looking to migrate because the primary storage is aging, and they want to get rid of it to migrate, and they're looking at buying even more primary storage, now is the time to say to them, shrink your profile of primary storage and eliminate eventually your nearline. Put in object storage that grows because it's fast enough to be in nearline. It's good enough to be there forever for long term. You're eliminating both of those tiers, and you can eliminate your nearline storage. So once you put it on object storage, and here's the key for everybody out there, is that it's truly forever. And forever, I'll call it the 100-year workflow, meaning that we can exchange the components out from underneath the system, whether they're disks, whether they're controllers, whatever we need to exchange, still keeping the system online. So it's very exciting. So the first use case is really looking at this the way people have it set up today. Most people have ingest, edit, and delivery on a workspace, which is a mix between SAN clients for high speed and LAN clients for low-speed operation, sometimes proxies, transcoders, sometimes you'll have annotation done there, graphics, and they traditionally go to a tape system, whether it's large or small, and they vault those tapes off-site. And that is traditionally the way it's been done, and that data tape is actually replacing the videotape that was there just a few years ago. So we put it in a standard format, and a lot of times this is a managed environment where the media asset manager runs it all. But we can modify that. We can say for someone who hasn't gone to a large tape or archive, they can simply put an object storage in there, reduce their footprint of primary storage, and go and have this on-site. So it eliminates essentially their on-site tape. But what a lot of people will do is they'll still say, I have clients that want tape, or they want to move it to a vaulting area, and they want to get to a standard format to vault it, and we can add a Scalar LTFS appliance, which will allow them to build LTFS or linear tape, and be able to move that to data tape that they can vault it away or give it to their clients. So it's all optional, and because it's quantum end-to-end, working with StoreNext, completely integrated, it just plugs in and works. One of the other options, and this is where a lot of people we are seeing that we're talking to today really see this, and that's that they had that first scenario, that first use case where they have tape, and now what they want to do is they want to move in object storage on site, move their tape to an off-site location, and they can still send it from object storage to tape using their media asset manager and something like Storage Manager to data move it off. This way they've maintained their tapes off-site where they have their latency, the amount of time to retrieval isn't important, and now they have forever disk to be able to get it right away. But of course, what Karen talked about is probably the biggest advantage of object storage. This is where, as people grow in the petabyte scale to the exabyte scale, and I don't see storage shrinking, I see Ultra HD, taking over a lot more, people with a lot more content. In fact, I was so excited to find out that, here's my little geekiness, that Samsung introduced a television, just an OLED television a couple weeks ago, where it actually can show two different shows on the same TV using 3D glasses. So the way it works is you put 3D glasses on, and it splits it with active shutters, and there's also sound that comes through the glasses, and you can have two broadcasts coming through the same television to two different people sitting in front of it watching it. I mean, I'm buying one for my wife because she can watch her soap operas or whatever she watches at night, and I can watch the shows that I want to see, and we can lay in bed together and do that. What that really tells me is the technology is really changing to where people want to deliver. It's no longer delivering the 500 channels where you have to pick one. Now I have delivering the 500 channels where I pick two. So just more content available. The reason I mention that is that today you're going to be saving more content, you're going to be delivering more content, and you're going to be moving it faster. And one of the problems with saying that I want to put it off-site with tape, or I want to have mirrored RAID and off-site location, is that if you do it in the mirrored RAID, it's a one-to-one. So you're buying twice the amount of storage, which for all of you selling it sounds good to buy twice the amount of storage. It sounds good to migrate it every 3 to 5 years. But the problem is the complexity and the petabyte scale that the customers need to get. When we talk about multi-location geospread, we're actually not talking about a complete replication. We're talking about spreading parts of that content out, just like we would with the algorithms, into multiple locations, and having the ability to set the preferences or the durability policies as to where it's out there. Kara, would you agree? Is that the best way to say that?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly correct. So, and in fact, this same concept applies to these other industries as well.
Yeah, and I think it's not only media and entertainment. So that geospread is really important to people who have a lot of content and may have offices or DR facilities where they have to do business continuance in other parts of the country or other parts of the world. So as we know, the uplink, or if you want to call it the on-ramp to the quote-unquote cloud, you're building yourself your own private cloud here. The performance is going to be variable by the wire, but in the case of some customers we've deployed actually where they've done this with their test deployments with a fast fiber pipe between them, it literally is like having it on site. So that's a really interesting use case. The other thing that we see is in the government market, and we'll call it federal for those of you who address that, or people who are scaling quickly beyond petabyte. And what's happening is they have to keep the content or the data for a long time, and the data has different values that change constantly, and they need to migrate that data from different integrity levels. And it's the same scenario as we see in media entertainment. The difference is the value of that data can change very rapidly. And so they have applications today that are standard cloud-like applications, but they need greater performance, so they need to have that mix of hybrid cloud, and that data needs to be secure. So you're not sending that into a public cloud. Obviously, that would be bad. So they integrate, data sets. I think that you heard Karen talk about Hadoop, one of the analysis softwares that people use, software pieces that people use most often. They can use a simple HTTP REST interface and get there. And so this is really a service continuance story for the government. So it looks really simple. They currently have, a lot of them have a StorNext environment already. They have a compute cluster a lot of times. They have workstations for analysis. What they do is right now they're bringing the data off of something like tape or something slow, moving it in for analysis, moving it back out. With this, they can literally address it. They can scale out for rapid retrieval either in their facility or outside their facility, and they can make it addressable to multiple things. Karen talked about this and this was probably the most important thing for me, is she talked about a StoreNext interface and a NAS-style interface. So you could have your compute cluster on a NAS-style interface with Hadoop. You could have StoreNext people doing the analysis. You could do it all at once. The other area is both physical sciences, call it oil and gas, and life sciences, where you have multi-generational storage of large data sets. It can last a long period of time. Everything else is standard, but what you have here is you actually have remote clients across the cloud. And in life sciences, it's very popular to be able to take your content and give it to a number of people in remote areas that they can address it. It's true with physical sciences, too, like oil and gas, where the exploration happens far away and they have to address the compute somewhere closer. So these use cases are very, very popular, and we have many others, and I'd love to address those with you. Okay, let's take a second and talk about configurations. So Karen talked about Lattus X being an NFS or a CIFS and NFS file system, and Lattus M being one that's controlled on StoreNext, so it uses Storage Manager. Now, I have a comparison up here of both of them, and essentially what you're going to see is that Lattus X is truly a CIFS NFS gateway. Karen, if you want to comment on that as well. And the other is actually Storage Manager. But what I'm going to tell you is this is your chocolate and your peanut butter put together, because you don't have to choose a Lattus X or a Lattus M. You can have both. So where your customers are looking at a single use case, and I'll say media and entertainment is usually that single Lattus M use case, other customers will say, well, I can't afford multi-petabytes for one use case. So I have one use case where customers want to come in and have CIFS and NFS, and others where people want to work on the Storage Manager or StoreNext network. They can have both. You know, Karen, give me some examples of how you've seen that work.
Well, I mean, I think that the obvious is that if you've got all your video files large, you know, you've got a customer who's got a big tape environment under StoreNext, but then they've got another organization that has a large unstructured NAS or departmental data distributed through a NAS environment. They want to centralize that and have it be accessible, so that you can have Lattus X be one of your access nodes coming into the same repository, the same storage nodes. Lattus M can use your existing MDC controller and their StoreNext environment and take that video file and bring it in. In addition to that, we now have a Commvault connection where if you're doing your backup data and you want to have that go into a central repository and stage out as well, you can have a direct interface through Commvault into the Lattus environment.
So all on your Lattus. And so we
all in the same Lattus environment. That's right.
We tried to lower the cost as well. This information is going to be available, so I'm just going to show you have it up here. We've built an entry-level 6-node Lattus as well, both an X and an M, and you can put them both together. You can see smaller raw capacities allow people to get in here, but still incredible performance and incredible scalability if you want to go forward. For customers who are looking for larger implementations, you know, a raw 3/4 of a petabyte, a half a petabyte usable here, we do have these configurations with 20 node. And again, these are SRPs that you can talk to your customer. I'm sure you will have the street price that you can work with them on, and we'd love to work with you with these configurations.
And Alex, I want to mention too that, you know, we have the ability, these are our standard configurations, but, you know, bring any deal forward. I mean, we can go down as low as a 50 terabyte configuration if it makes sense. I mean, you have a little bit more overhead around the controller piece, but we can work, we're actually looking at some ideas to even make that, the way we package that together for you, much more attractive. So don't look more at the needs and the requirements than the size here, and realize that we can scale from a very low level all the way up.
And Karen, we've done multi-petabyte systems already, correct?
Oh yeah, we've got them in production today.
And let me turn it over to you to talk about how to hunt. We've got about 9 minutes left to talk about this, so we're going to talk about hunting and POCs and all the fun stuff. So
yeah,
we spent a lot of time on the prep and those pieces, but tell us how to hunt for these things.
Sure, and we'll make this straightforward. We've pretty much already been talking about how you hunt. You guys already know how to hunt. That's what you do for a living. I think the important thing here is to really focus on your customers and, you know, what is it? Go back to that beginning of this. For some reason, I'm not able to advance the slides here, guys. I'm not sure what the problem is.
John, can you advance that for Karen?
Yeah, I'll have to take over.
Thank you.
There's no slight technical errors. I love that. It's all technology.
Sorry about that, everybody. But basically what you're able to do here is just, you've heard all of this. We've already talked about the different use cases. One thing I'd add to the media and entertainment is think of houses of worship. Look for hundreds of terabytes. Not only, maybe they don't have to have all of that today, but do they have a growth pattern that gets them there? The more they have scale issues around RAID, ask the customers how much, if they're having rebuild issues, if they're having drive failures, if they're getting concerned about those kinds of things. Refreshing, if they've got refreshes coming up for the NetApp or ISON environment or tape, now might be the time to relook at their infrastructure plan, not just for today but for the future. Just go through these things and make sure you're looking through these pain points that we've been talking about throughout this whole presentation. And all of this, by the way, will be available to you. So reach out to us and we can walk you through this in even more detail and do account mapping and help you hunt. And with that, maybe we can walk over to the next chart.
John, can you advance for us, please?
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
Sorry.
Now it's working now. Sorry about that. So I guess the other thing I want to mention is that in addition to hunting, we've got a number of tools available to you. Skip's going to go through some of those for you. But when one of the most important things is being able to show the customer what you can do. And a public cloud, you can actually go in and log in, get credentials, and log in. You can try out a public cloud. But trying out, single-tenant private cloud environments has always been a challenge. So we've created, I think, a very unique path for you guys as a way to really get this so that it's live and visible to your clients as you're going through the sales cycle. The first one is for your initial qualification phase. We actually have a demonstration tool that our SEs have available on their laptops, and they can connect into our remote site, and they can show functionally the screens and things that the customers would naturally see and when they were to load up a Lattus system. So our local SEs can do a short 20-minute, 30-minute demo for your clients at the initial qualification phase. Second, we can do live demos. We can actually schedule these. We have a live setup we're going to talk about in more detail sitting out in Las Vegas at the Switch at SwitchNap today. And there we have real technical experts that will actually walk your customers through a detailed live demo and really show them a lot more detail than all the functional advantages, all the functional feature sets, administrative things that they can see in that live demonstration. So that takes about an hour. As you go further down the sales cycle, we can actually do functional validations. You can sign your customers up once we get them in the QDR process. We can get the qualification done. We can get you the credentials so your customer can get their own opportunity to log into our private cloud environment and set up and try it out themselves. And in addition to that, we can even go further. So with that, I want to hand it over back to Skip. Skip, maybe you can walk them through, how what all the great things we've got out in Vegas.
Absolutely. So what do? You've got an exciting prospect. They've got these big scale challenges. They can see that their data growth is going to be beyond the petascale stage. So when you want to demonstrate it, as Karen mentioned, the SE can demonstrate it on site or via WebEx. We can do live demonstrations, leading all the way up to functional validation. And the goal of that, of course, is to advance it down the road toward that sale. So we have a Lattus installation at the Switch SuperNap Center, which is an incredibly impressive environment that's hosting your Lattus environment. It's supreme availability. It is an extremely low latency network to the data center. And it's one of the best sites, best connected sites in North America. And odds are some of your customers may already have installations in that environment, which opens up some very interesting cross-pollination possibilities there. So please do bubble up those opportunities. When the SE is installing it, it gives you a chance to validate with the customer what their sort of acceptance criteria is. Obviously you're talking about their pain points and the solutions and how this type of workflow and how leveraging Lattus can help solve that. well, you can go ahead and experience it in the cloud, and then the SEs can help drive through virtual appliances to help test this. And this is particularly interesting when the client is starting to blend their StorNext to object storage-based workflows, or blending their custom application. Perhaps it reaches out using common HTTP REST interfaces. Perhaps you want to explore using a Hadoop-style interface where you're going from workstations, pulling in data, moving it to a high-speed collaborative workflow and back and forth. These are all great things that you can proof and validate with this system at Switch SuperNAP. So how do you engage? Step one, obviously, is meet with those customers. Listen for the pain points that were mentioned earlier. We are your partners every step of the way. Grab a Quantum SE that's had a lot of training in this. Let's partner for you. Let's demonstrate for you and with you. We can also do calls, demonstration calls with the Quantum technical team. But the goal, of course, is to get those customer validations, and we can set up an account for your customer at this stage, so that they will have an account at the Switch SuperNAP so that they can log in and start testing their environment. And once again, we're here to help you. We're here to help you flush out those opportunities, bring together a team to help you close them and advance them down the different stages. So as far as sales tools, both the Quantum Alliance and the reseller big data promotions have been updated in the past few days. It pays to partner. There are spiffs up to $1,000 for queuing up a qualified customer meeting. And then, of course, you can earn another $1,000 on close on top of what you would normally earn. So
you're telling me, Skip, that if I set a qualified meeting for a Lattus opportunity, qualified through Quantum, I'm going to get $1,000 as a reseller? And then when that deal closes, I'm going to get another $1,000?
You can't beat that with a stick.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic way. You're already prospecting. It just shows a level of excitement and commitment to help you engage and showcase this great new technology and this new tool in your toolbox for your existing customers. So do check out these two sheets: the new Quantum Alliance Reseller Program and the Big Data Promotions. They've both been updated in the past couple of days. We're excited, and we hope you're excited as well to really drive this new capability with your customers. The presentation you saw earlier today will be made available. We will also have a voiceover to help coach you through some good ways that we found in describing describing this technology and taking the customer through the mindset of how their business models have changed. Of course, we have the data sheets for Lattus M. And when you do have that customer, the way to engage is go ahead and grab that Lattus qualification form, also available on IQ. It helps us frame and scope the customer engagement with you and helps flush out any technical needs so that we know that the engagement goes smoothly for you. So with that, I think I turn it to Mr. John Good.
All right. Yeah, we had some great questions today. I saw that you guys were answering some of them during the presentation. One of the questions was, how do you protect the data on Lattus? How do you protect, and I think you guys talked a little bit about the different options there, but I don't know if you want to summarize.
Absolutely. So some of the questions were how is we'll go through them quickly so that we can wrap up for you guys. But how is the data protected? The answer is that the data is represented as objects, and these objects can be replicated, and then by performing calculations and transformations on it, you can make multiple copies. You can scrub the data. And perform a number of continuous operations on the data. It's radically different than the way data just sits on traditional data structures. And the other question was a more detailed technological question about what exactly is the code underneath that's being used. And it's a type of forward error correction code, the same type of code that broadcasts information that is survivable in case of, for example, when NASA is beaming instructions to a rover on on Mars, they're actually transmitting that using a forward error correction code so that as data is transmitted, it's survivable, and you can recalculate and reconstruct that transmission so that the rover doesn't do Lord knows what, and it actually carries out its instructions. So very, very cool technology, very transformative in the way you look at and use and manage data. And of course, we're excited to take you deeper into those technological discussions as you or your customers need.
All right. I think there was another question. What are the different ways to connect Lattus? Do you want to answer that one real quickly?
So the different ways to connect Lattus, depending on the type of Lattus that you get, Lattus M is designed to connect with your StorNext environment. Lattus X would be designed more for your private cloud environment. So there are a number of ways. If you're talking about how clients access that data, obviously as a StorNext client is one possibility, and they can use standard protocols like SMB, CIFS, or NFS. And again, bring those technical questions and bring those inquiries, and we would love to go through them with you in more detail.
All right. I think that's it for the questions. So I think we'll wrap it up now. Thanks, everybody, for joining. I want to announce the Starbucks cards winners. Spencer Rogerson, Carol Penlum, Garrick Huey, Kevin Folkman, and Donald May. Join us next month for another Coffee with Quantum. We're going to do 2 more next month, so look for that invitation coming out at the beginning of September, and we hope to see you again in September. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.